Conservative constituency office was vandalized by someone who admits to being motivated by an NDP lie, and the NDP are silent. The night of January 15th, the constituency office of United Conservative Party MLA for Lac-La-Biche, St. Paul Two Hills Dave Hansen, was vandalized. Now, Hansen issued a statement saying, "Yesterday night, my constituency office in St. Paul was vandalized, with our front windows shattered by large rocks thrown through them. Thankfully, nobody was injured, as the vandalism took place after hours when neither my local staff nor the Albertans who come into my office seeking assistance were present." But it wasn't just run-of-the-mill vandalism. This wasn't random, and it wasn't without political motive. This was political vandalism directed at Hansen, and we know that now because someone came forward and took responsibility for the destruction, sending the United Conservative Party an email detailing why he targeted Hansen. The Vandal said he did it because of a tweet sent by NDP Community and Social Services Minister Irfan Sabir. Here's the email the alleged Vandal sent, and I apologize, the email is a little hard to read. It read, "I don't know if you remember, I came in not long ago to discuss some things, and I did receive an incoming call, but I was unaware I was expecting a call from her. But anyway, last night after reading this about the particular tweet about 700 million tax break and cut almost all AISH supports, I'm an AISH recipient and stuff, and this kind of made me really sick reading it. Just like, I don't understand this at all. Why the UCP think like this, I just don't understand. I feel almost threatened by the next UCP government here. I already know, like, it sounds like they're going after a lot of kind of minority groups and stuff. I just don't feel really safe in my community. I don't feel safe. The UCP is in this sort of thing. I'm really sorry for throwing rocks, but words cannot explain this. Deeply troubled, very disgusted. I haven't committed an offense in a long time, not since I was homeless when I stole a cell phone. That's the only crime I had ever committed, and anyway." Okay, so now let's take a look at the tweet the alleged Vandal is talking about in his email from Minister Sabir. Alberta UCP plan to give a $700 million tax break to the richest 1%. To pay for this, they would have to cut almost all of AISH, or Assured Income for the Severely Handicapped, which supports 60,000 people. Our government will not let this happen. We will continue to fight for you and protect your services. The only reason this troubled alleged Vandal feels unsafe in their community is that he believes the lies of the NDP. And when I say lies, I absolutely mean lies of the shameless variety. Bill 26 was just passed before the legislature broke for Christmas. The bill gives a raise to people on Alberta's AISH program. It was brought forward by Sabir himself, and it was supported by the UCP. So when Sabir took to Twitter to say that the UCP would cut AISH by almost 100%, that's just another NDP lie, a number fabricated out of the ether about cuts the UCP has never supported. And how about the NDP? How are they reacting to this very real political violence targeted at one of their legislature colleagues because of a complete and total falsehood from one of their very own ministers? A 34-year-old man is now facing charges of mischief because he believed the conspiracy theories being peddled by the NDP and their ministers. And out of the two mainstream media news stories on the subject, one from Global and one from CTV, no one bothered to reach out to the NDP for comment at all. And the CBC, as I'm writing this, they don't even have a story about the vandalism. And I checked a couple different ways. Just imagine if this vandalism were committed against an NDP office and the alleged Vandal blamed a tweet from the United Conservative Party. Holy moly, it would be a firestorm. And I guarantee you there would be a story on the CBC, probably 5 stories by now. And you know what? We don't even have to imagine what the mainstream media would really be like, because we know exactly what they're like when something far less happens to the NDP. I mean, let's just take a look at the infamous "lock her up" chant at one of our carbon tax rallies in Edmonton a couple years ago. A frustrated crowd of unemployed oilmen and farmers and severely normal people blew off a little steam on a cold December day with a little jokey chant of "lock her up" about Rachel Notley. It was wall-to-wall coverage for the better part of 2 weeks from the mainstream media. They were seeking comment from politicians who weren't even there that day, asking them and then getting them to renounce us for a joke chant from frustrated Albertans. Rachel Notley said the "lock her up" chant reflects the ugly edge in politics. Nightly panels were convened at the CBC. Taxpayer-funded hen parties that clucked and squawked every single night about the chant. The NDP House Leader, Brian Mason, found his voice then to call the "lock her up" chants disgusting and Trump-style politics. The "lock her up" chant even made it on the BBC. The pearl clutching would be laughable if it weren't so pathetic. But let's move on to the next thing, shall we? Do you remember the infamous golf tournament cutout of Rachel Notley in Brooks, Alberta? The tournament was held by the Big Country Oilmen's Association. So, these guys, they're obviously hit hard by the downturn. And they put up a cardboard cutout of Rachel Notley on the 11th hole. It was a joke. Again, just more frustrated Albertans finding themselves an outlet, using political speech to let off some steam in a way that doesn't involve smashing bricks through windows. NDP activists and the mainstream media strangled an apology out of the poor man who organized the event. NDP activist and now NDP candidate Janice Irwin equated the cardboard cutout to violent threats that female politicians have to put up with, and she actually said it was part of a culture of violence and threats against female politicians. A cardboard cutout is violence now. And then there was NDP MLA Shea Anderson, who called a regular farmer being critical of the Labour minister at a Bill 6 rally extremely violent and brutal, even though Anderson wasn't even there. And I think there's a more recent example of this. It's the repeated lies from NDP Environment Minister Shannon Phillips about so-called threats and safety concerns being the real reason she canceled the consultation on the Bighorn land use changes. Every time Phillips opened her mouth to talk about these so-called threats, an RCMP spokesperson debunked everything she said. The RCMP have said they have no open investigations and there were no reports of threats. And according to the local MLA Jason Nixon, the RCMP actually commended the people of the area for their good conduct during the consultations. You can see the full coverage of that story and sign my petition asking Rachel Notley to fire her fibbing minister Shannon Phillips at firephillips.com. It's just lies and more lies from the NDP about violence that never happened to them. And then the NDP turned soft criticism of them and political speech directed towards them into these new threats and violence. Talk about moving the goalposts. But how do the NDP behave when actual political violence breaks out? Well, normally they go into hiding like they are now, or they just pretend it never happened at all. I guess it's 2 years ago this weekend that I was assaulted by an NDP supporting male feminist named Dion Buse while covering the Edmonton Women's March. Buse was charged and he pled guilty, but that didn't stop the NDP conspiracy theory machine and the mainstream media hacks from trying to victim blame me for being in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong political ideology. I never heard a word from the NDP asking me if I was okay. I never heard a word from the Status of Women minister, even though I was assaulted on the steps of her workplace at a women's event. I never heard from any of the NDP ministers after I had to sue my attacker in a second legal proceeding just to try to set the record straight. The NDP pretended and continued to pretend like what happened to me at their offices never happened at all. But that cardboard cutout, you guys, somebody hit it with a golf ball. So that requires several articles about the culture of violence surrounding women in politics. Just give me a break already. What happened to Dave Hansen, and don't take my word for it, take the admitted Vandal's word, is a result of untrue NDP rhetoric. No one's asking the NDP about it. And you know what? They never will. The NDP don't really care about political violence. They care about using accusations of it to shut up their critics. For the Rebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To see the full story of how NDP Environment Minister Shannon Phillips repeatedly used lies to shut down consultations on the Bighorn land use changes, go to firephillips.com. There you can sign my petition and donate to my big, beautiful billboard that I'm going to put on the side of Highway 2, calling on Rachel Notley to fire Shannon Phillips. Again, that's at firephillips.com.